There is a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from effort. It comes from being mentally present for too long. Decision after decision, information after information, signals that never fully stop arriving. Even when nothing urgent is happening, the mind keeps moving. Not racing, just active. Processing, evaluating, anticipating. You may notice it at night when the body finally slows, but the inner dialogue continues. Or in moments that should feel simple, yet the mind keeps layering meaning, planning, remembering, comparing. This is not because you are doing something wrong, and it is not because you lack discipline or clarity. Modern life trains the mind to stay engaged long after it is needed. Attention is rarely allowed to settle. It is asked to track, to respond, to remain available, even in the absence of real demand. So the system adapts. Mental activity becomes constant. Stillness feels unfamiliar. Rest happens, but the mind doesn't fully follow. Nothing here is meant to fix that. There is no instruction to stop thinking, no advice to quiet the mind, no request to change your experience. This space does not ask for control. Simply notice that you are already here. Breathing is already happening. Sensation is already present. Awareness is already aware, without effort. Without doing anything, you may begin to sense how much mental movement has been operating in the background. Not as loud thought, not as obvious stress, more like a subtle momentum, a sense that the mind keeps leaning forward even when there is nowhere it needs to go. This leaning becomes familiar when attention is pulled outward again and again, when clarity is demanded constantly, when responsiveness becomes a requirement rather than a choice. Over time, the mind forgets that it can pause without being forced. You don't need to undo that. There is nothing here to release and nothing to let go of. Only a quiet noticing of how much activity has been present and how little activity is required right now. The mind does not need to be silenced to rest. It does not need to be corrected. Like the body, it knows how to settle when it is no longer being asked to perform. Notice how thoughts may continue to arise, yet something else remains steady beneath them. A background that does not argue with thought. A space that does not try to manage it. Thoughts move. The space they move in does not. You may begin to sense this difference, not as an idea, but as a lived contrast. Activity happening within something that is not active. This underlying space does not feel dramatic. It is not special. It does not announce itself. It feels ordinary, almost unnoticed, like silence behind sound. Awareness does not need to reach for it. It is already here. Attention can rest without direction because there is nowhere it needs to go. Here, the effort to understand begins to soften. The need to interpret what is happening loses relevance. Meaning-making becomes optional. Nothing needs to be extracted from this moment. Simply notice how awareness is present even when it is not doing anything. Breath continues on its own. Sound arrives and fades. Thoughts complete themselves and dissolve. Nothing here requires management. You may notice that mental pressure, the sense of needing to hold things together, begins to ease without being addressed. Not because you tried to relax, but because there is nothing demanding that effort anymore. The system recognizes, quietly, that it is safe to stop pushing. Safety here does not mean comfort. It means absence of demand. When nothing is being asked of the mind, it reorganizes itself. Attention no longer feels like something you are directing. It begins to feel more like something that is already supporting the moment. The inner dialogue may still appear. That does not disturb this. Thoughts are not the problem. Effort around thought is. As effort softens, awareness widens without trying to expand. There is more room around experience. Even uncertainty fits here, even mental noise. Nothing needs to be excluded. At some point, not suddenly, not dramatically, the sense of being the one who must manage experience loosens. Not as a realization you can point to, more like a quiet unburdening. The center of gravity shifts. Effort steps back. Support steps forward. Nothing new appears. Nothing disappears. Yet the way the moment is held feels subtly different. Attention no longer feels like an activity. It feels like a place. Not a place you go to, a place that was already here. This is not a peak, not a state to maintain, not something to remember later. It is the natural steadiness that remains when interference subsides. The mind may begin to move again. Planning may return. Memory may surface. Orientation toward the future may reappear. This does not undo what has settled. The space that holds thought is not disturbed by thought. You may begin to sense that clarity does not come from controlling the mind. It comes from no longer being carried away by its movement. Awareness remains present while activity passes through it. This is not detachment, it is containment. Experience moves, but something does not move with it. You do not need to understand this. Understanding would add movement where none is required. Simply notice that something is already holding the moment together, without effort, without direction, without intention. As time continues, sensation may become clearer. The body may adjust. The environment may come back into sharper focus. This steadiness does not retreat. It moves with you. Mental activity may resume its familiar rhythm, but it no longer feels like the center. It feels like content moving through a larger field. Nothing needs to be carried forward deliberately. Nothing needs to be remembered. Continuity happens naturally when awareness is no longer tasked with managing life. There is nowhere to leave and nowhere to return to. This is not an inner space separate from the world. It is the ground that experience arises from, whether the mind is active or quiet. As attention opens outward again, this grounding does not recede. Conversations may happen, tasks may resume, decisions may be made. None of this disturbs what is already settled. There is no need to hold on to this. Holding would only recreate effort. Let the moment complete itself, and allow whatever comes next, thought, movement, interaction, stillness, to arise from this same quiet center, without naming it, without protecting it, without needing to return.